Hello, everyone. It's Rose Davidson here. I'm by myself today. The lovely Charlene has been called away on urgent business. So I hope you are having a great Tuesday, and looking forward to discussing with Kathryn, our special guest today, on what she has to offer. Anyway, I will tell you a little bit about the show. So Healing Through Love is a social enterprise whose vision is to shift awareness on domestic and family violence within the community and to support survivors. Our mission is to provide family and domestic violence survivors with a soft place to land by offering advice and services available to them and their families. And as well as this Healing Through Love show, we hold annual Pamper Days for survivors in South Australia and in Tasmania. This is where local businesses come together and pay it forward by providing their services and resources for the day to give our survivors a much-deserved day of indulgence. And each week on the show, we interview experts and survivors who share their personal stories and offer advice to those who have experienced abuse, no matter where they are on their journey. And our lovely guest today is Kathryn Jones. Now, we had her on a couple of weeks ago. However, our stream didn't work very well, so we've invited the lovely Kathryn back. And Kathryn is here to share with you her story and how she helps survivors. And welcome, Kathryn. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you very much, Rose.
Yeah, thank you for joining me today again.
Oh, you're most welcome. These things happen with technology, don't they?
They do, unfortunately. However, just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in what you're doing.
I think for most people who are at service to others, it usually comes through personal experience and the need for your own growth and development, leading to then discovering something that changes your world, and so you want to help change other people's worlds. And so I think my journey is very similar to that. I was in an abusive marriage for 9 years, and when my children and I came out of that, we were struggling a lot. And so I went on my own journey to, I guess we call it, heal myself, or get myself back on track, because I had 3 young people who needed me to do that. And I found along the way, I was blessed along the way with the most amazing opportunities for myself. And so then I created what I call the Back To The Fitrah Mentoring Academy, so that I can help others that are going through or have been through what I went through.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sound's gone. Are you okay? You still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
I stopped talking.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Okay, so how did you, I guess, manage to get from where you were to where you are now?
I guess the first step is obviously leaving the environment that I was in. That was very challenging, and I think a lot of people struggle to actually leave in the first place. In fact, after I left, I actually live in Adelaide, but I moved to Coffs Harbour to be near my father, so I had family support. And I did a course there called Women in Life through Uniting Burnside there. And one of the things that they explained was it takes up to 7 attempts, or an average of 7 attempts, for people to actually leave. So for me, because I have my own beliefs, and it was through my own beliefs and my own faith that gave me the strength and the courage and the direction to do that. And everything fell into place for me. When I got to Coffs Harbour, there was the Women in Life program, and there was I had a psychologist that I was seeing every week, and just everything fell in front of me the resources that I needed to take those first steps of pulling myself together. And so it really took making the decision that I didn't want to be like that anymore, that I didn't want to be a victim anymore. And it has taken many years, because that was 2003. It was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
And so I've been on a long journey along the way. Came across Parenting by Connection, which really helped me help my children and understand how to hold space for them to work through what they were going through. Then I came across what we call the inside out paradigm, which was what really changed everything for me to having the resilience that I do today, and to really feel that whatever happened before does not interfere with my life today.
Yeah, it's always important. And I've heard, I mean, I'm a survivor myself, and I do know that it takes a long time to get the courage, I guess, to leave, because people, keep saying, why don't you just leave? Why don't you just leave? But it's not as easy as people think it is. It's, it takes personal courage, because you do have children to think about. And, is it better for me to stay, or is it better for me to go? And that in your heart that it's good for it's better for you to go. But quite often it's that financial support, I guess, that that you are used to within that horrible relationship, no matter how horrible it is, that, you mentally you just don't want to separate yourself from. And I think
it wasn't so much financial for me, because I was the one that did most of the earning the income in the family. It's more I think the confusion that, the gaslighting and the confusion, the emotional and mental abuse that you go through, that leaves you really confused what is right, even though in your heart it's right. You just become quite confused. And people say, why did you stay? And you don't know why you stayed. It's because it seems too hard to go. It's really hard to see the way out. Yeah. You might also have awful threats, which I had awful threats of what would happen to me if I took the kids and things like that. Of course, obviously none of that came about.
Luckily, yes.
Yeah. But you fear what might happen, because you've seen pretty horrific behavior and experienced it escalating, and there's always that concern what it might escalate to.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree. And that is another reason that people don't leave. It's because of the threats, and they think because they've been gaslighted and just so much negative feedback, they've lost confidence in themselves, and they don't think that there is a way out. And lucky for you, you had support, and a lot of survivors don't have that support network because no one believes them. They don't have the physical bruises to prove that anything is actually happening to them. So yeah, it can be quite a challenge. So
I do think that emotional abuse is probably is worse than the other forms of abuse, and it's the one that we don't seem to manage or handle very well in our system, because we don't seem to we don't seem to take it seriously enough, or see it as really as problematic as it is, because you heal from the bruises much quicker than you heal from the emotional wounds.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I was quite young when my first abusive relationship was, and he made me so afraid of the dark. And it was until my late 40s that I could actually go outside at nighttime and not be afraid. So, that was a very long time. I left him like when I was 18. So it took that long for my mental capacity to, get over that fear. And even though I used to say to myself, well, it's only the dark. There's nothing out there that's going to hurt you. But yeah, I just couldn't believe it. It was just scary.
Yeah.
But anyway, you are the founder of Back to the Fitrah Mentoring Academy. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is, please?
Sure. So fitrah is an Arabic word for like your innate natural state, the state that, you know, you were born on. And so for us, Back to the Fitrah is helping people return back to the resilience and the confidence and the patience and the inner peace and everything that they were born with. And we do that through, you know, teaching them about their understanding their human experience, how their feelings work and how their thinking works. And for us, the word fitrah is a Islamic terminology, so it's really for a lot of what we do has Islam woven through it, because we really work with the Muslims in that area. It doesn't matter what nationality, what faith, what skin color, what language you speak. Domestic abuse is something that is prevalent everywhere. It's not more so in one or the other. I think that it's just unfortunately a problem with the human condition that we have in this era. Or maybe it's always been a problem, but I can only speak for this era, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think domestic violence has been around since time immemorial. However, it's just been, I guess, more talked about now than it used to be back in the, you know, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s and 90s. Even the 90s, it wasn't, you know, really talked about. It was just swept under the carpet. And, you know, if you were an abused woman, most often I think you were just too embarrassed or too ashamed to say that, you know, you'd made a wrong choice.
Yeah, but how do you know, you know, because these things don't really, unless you know the red flags, these things don't appear until you're established in the relationship. And these people can behave in the most beautiful manner, you know, prior to that. So how do you know? I mean, I can tell now because I know what the red flags are. But if you've been in your childhood subjected to abuse, it's almost like you're accustomed to it, or you don't see it as red flags. You just see it as, well, that's just how people behave, and that's problematic.
Yeah, I agree. I grew up sexually abused, and
me too.
Yeah, and I was abused by my father, and you know, he was such a narcissist, and he was just so mean, and I just thought that that's how life was. I didn't know any different, and it took me years to work out that, yeah, people just aren't allowed to behave like that.
It takes a long time to come to the point where you respect yourself enough to say, no, do you know what? I don't deserve to be treated like that.
Yep, I agree with that. Now, also, you're on a mission in the Muslim world, and specifically to empower Muslim adults and children to realise the potential through learning and the innate resilience and mental health that, you know, we all deserve throughout life, from birth to death. And so can you just explain a little bit more about you know, why you're on this mission? I mean, other than, you know, you coming from a place of abuse, but are there other reasons that you know you're doing this?
Yeah, what I witnessed when I embraced Islam, so I was 26 years old when I became a Muslim, and so I grew up in Australia, you know, white Aussie, right? And then I became a Muslim and I put the scarf on, and I experienced quite a difference in how people treated me. And if no one believes that white privilege exists, I can tell you it does, because when you lose it, you realize you've had it. But if you've never lost it, perhaps you don't realize you've got it. And what I have seen is, especially over the last couple of decades, the Muslim world has been in the spotlight as being the bad guys, and it's not true. I mean, we're lovely people. There's a few not so nice people. That's understating it, obviously, but they're such a 0.01 or even 0.001% of the population, and yet we're all being judged because of that tiny group. And so what I was seeing over the years, I started off in parenting actually, but what I've seen over the years is depression and a lot of mental health issues, a lot of stress and anxiety, panic attacks, and these sorts of conditions becoming more prevalent. And I wanted to be part of the solution of that. I think that it's been taking a toll over the decades now. We're now talking about generations of our kids who haven't even known a world without Islamophobia because they've been born into it, because we're now talking a couple of decades, and the effects that has on them as well. So I work with kids as well for that reason, so they can feel strong in their own identity.
Yeah, and it is important, and you are right. I mean, Muslims are pretty much tarred with the same brush. It is unfortunate. It's like, I guess, coloured people are tarred with the same brush because of, a few bad apples in the bunch.
But there's bad apples in every bunch. That's the problem. And so targeting one specific group for their bad apples and not realizing you've got your own, it just doesn't make sense.
No, I think it's just the it's the horrible bigotry and racism that that we grow up with. And if you find one group of people in a specific culture are bad, then everyone must be bad. So and I know that is a view I don't hold personally, but however, it is a view held by many people. And the bigotry and racism that goes on towards religions or races of people, to me is really abhorrent. But what do you do except for stand up and point it out? And
so I see everything we're talking about today is around oppression, and that's really what I'm working against, is oppression. And my understanding is, from my own personal experience, is when we end our own internalized oppression, then other people can't oppress us. So I don't feel like people can oppress me now. I mean, they might be able to physically in one way or another, but in terms of emotionally, mentally, psychologically, I don't feel like I can be oppressed, because I've freed myself from my own internalized oppression that starts with us first. And so that's really what we're aiming to do, is help people come back to that resilience that everybody does have inside them, so that we end oppression from the grassroots.
Yeah, and being a survivor also brings and getting off the oppression part, but being a survivor, does bring its own mental health challenges, and a lot of times children, and most often children, are affected more than the adult, because they've seen the abuse, they've witnessed it, they've heard it, and if you don't change the behaviours that they're witnessing or experiencing, they're not going to be able to grow up to be fully fledged adults, if that makes any sense. Yeah, it just, their skew on the world is going to be so much different. And it's people like yourself who have these education programs for for people. I think it's a great initiative, and it's a great benefit to not just the Muslim community, but to the community as a whole. I think we need more people like you in the community to foster learning and progress and love and nurturing and all those things that can make us such a better society.
I think that the most important thing that we need to foster first is hope, because I think when you're in it, it feels very hopeless, and the first thing that has to be kindled is some sense of hope, that there is hope to be beyond this. And you and I are, I guess, the beacons of hope, that you know, we've come out of it. We've come out the other side. We're doing what we can to make a difference in the world on this issue. Sharing our stories, I think, is really important. So being able to get to a point where you feel comfortable to share your story with others so that they can see that there is a way out. We're actually initiating a project within our Back to the Fitrah, which is aimed at those that are still in that situation, helping them develop a safe way out. Mm-hmm. So how they go about a safe way out. I've helped a number of women work their way out, and even from they were overseas. And, you know, there's key things like, you know, ensuring that they keep their behaviors the same as always and not let on that, you know, their behaviors are changing so that, you know, things escalate, you know, because the minute there's an awareness that something is changing, you know, everything escalates. So helping them manage a safe way out. That's a project that we're initiating.
That's a terrific project. I was speaking to somebody not long ago who's it was a male actually who was helping female survivors with that very same thing. And I think it's such a great initiative that, and you're right about behaviours. Do not let on that there's something different, that, you know, that you've actually found an escape route, because you know, they'll pounce on that, they'll know, and they'll do anything they can to keep you. So yeah, I think it's
unfortunately, once there's insecurity sets in, they need to control things more, and if they feel that they're losing control, things can escalate. And even if there hasn't been any sort of physical abuse, it can switch over to physical, and it can become quite dangerous. So it's not something to take lightly, the sorts of exit plans and how to get out, or not something that you announce to the world that you're doing either, because
you don't know who to tell.
Yeah, you have to be very, very careful on your support plan.
Yes, it's unfortunate though, isn't it, that, you know, that the world is like that, that you think that the most trustworthy person, you know, only has to make a tiny slip up and everything's just for nothing, you know, and they have to start all over again.
But it's worth it, isn't it, Rose?
Yeah.
Life on the other side, it's so worth it. And talking about children, like that was one of them that just slammed my door. Mine are all adults now that are from that marriage, and yeah, we've still got issues we're working through, but I am so happy with how they're going and how they're working through things. And I have real hope that despite the challenging childhood they had, that they can live functional adult lives and not have to continue the pattern of being either victims or perpetrators of abuse.
Yeah, and that's always the issue, isn't it? Is especially for children, if they have grown up in that sort of environment, that they themselves become a perpetrator, not by probably want, but just something that they're used to and something that, you know, is a habit to them, and they don't know any different. So
yeah,
and that makes it difficult. So you have a bit of formal and informal education along with personal and professional experience to give your, you know, perspective to other survivors. So where does your formal education come from?
So for my formal education is more in the education. So I have a graduate diploma in teaching and learning, so I'm qualified as a teacher. I guess there's other formal training in terms of I trained to become an instructor for Parenting by Connection, because I saw how powerful that was with my kids. I did a certification with as an inside out paradigm coach. So I've done various other sorts of things like that. But most of my, I guess my real learning has been because I've needed to know something and I've really dived deep into it. And when I've found the answers, just dug even more. And so that's the informal knowledge, and it comes from books, it comes from learning under different teachers, it comes from following different people. So there's a plethora of different places that I've got all that from. So I just feel very blessed that I've had that opportunity to learn what I needed. And so I feel it feels like my mission to share it with others so they can have it too.
That's excellent. Yeah, you're right. You know, you and I are in the space of wanting to share our knowledge and to help others through the process. So, yeah, it's great. I guess your program is mainly for Muslim women.
We actually have men as well. There are men who are victims of abuse as well. Not that our academy is just really for people who are abused. It's for emotional and spiritual well-being for any Muslims. But yeah, it is mostly for the Muslim audience because we weave Islam all the way through it. But what we teach is actually relevant to anyone. So how we are as human beings emotionally and spiritually is the same for all of us. Doesn't matter what religion we believe in or practice. So anyone's welcome to join us, even if they're not a Muslim. They'll just have to put up with the fact that we talk about Allah and we talk about the Quran and all that sort of thing throughout the program.
Yeah. So where can people actually find you, Kathryn?
So scrolling across the screen is my Facebook profile, my LinkedIn profile. Probably send me a message if they're interested to connect with me. That's probably the easiest way at this point.
Terrific. All right. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure talking to you, finally. And it went well today. And good luck with the Academy. It sounds something really awesome, and I'm sure a lot of people have and will continue to benefit from your teachings and from, you know, the support that you're giving them.
Thank you. Yes, I hope so.
So I will put your details into the chat as I'm talking to you because I didn't do that earlier. It's going to be there now.
Now you have to multitask.
Yes, I've been doing that all afternoon, so it's all right. Anyway, thank you so much. I've enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully that you can come back on again at a future time.
I'd be happy to. Yes, love to.
Lovely. Thank you, Kathryn.
Thank you for having me.
And that's our episode for this week. Thank you so much to everyone for joining us. I just want to give you an update that I'm still progressing with the men's retreat here in Tassie. And we're still looking for sponsors and exhibitors for our Paper Day in May next year in Adelaide. And, of course, in Tassie as well. I'm still trying to source a venue down here. So thank you again for joining me. And I look forward to your company again next week when I'm sure that lovely Charlene will be back and she'll regale you with her goings on for the past week. So have a great afternoon, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.